Welcome to our deep dive into serpent myths from around the world. This is exciting because you've given us a real mix of sources for this one.
Yeah.
We've got that Wikipedia article about the Amaru
Right.
and an article about the last Inca emperor, Tupac Amaru, plus some YouTube videos on the Nagas with Praveen Mohan and Sri M.
Intriguing stuff.
And to top it off, we're even going to look at the Serpent Mound in Ohio.
It's like we're putting together this giant puzzle.
A serpent puzzle.
Yeah. Where each piece is another source that just reveals a bit more about these fascinating creatures.
Exactly. It's really quite remarkable how these sources, as diverse as they are,
Right.
they all kind of converge on this one central question.
Which is,
Are serpent myths simply stories, or are they hinting at something deeper?
and could there even be a link between serpent worship in the Americas and similar beliefs across the world?
Yeah. Let's start with the Amaru, the mythical serpent or dragon.
Dragon, okay.
That figures prominently in Inca mythology, according to that Wikipedia article. What really stood out to me was the Amaru's dual nature. It's depicted as both benevolent and destructive.
That duality is actually crucial to understanding the Amaru. You see, its connection to water links it to life-giving agricultural forces.
But also,
But also to the destructive power of floods and earthquakes, which were very real threats to the Andean civilizations.
so it's this force of nature that can both sustain and destroy.
Precisely.
And speaking of the Inca, there's that connection to the last Inca emperor, Tupac Amaru.
Oh yeah, how could we ignore that?
His name itself evokes this really powerful serpent imagery.
And his reign was actually defined by resistance against the Spanish conquest. So adopting the Amaru name takes on even deeper significance. It symbolizes the Inca kind of casting off Spanish rule, almost like a serpent shedding its skin to reveal a new layer beneath.
I never thought of it that way. It adds a whole new dimension to the idea of Amaru as a symbol of liberation. Now, let's switch gears for a moment and talk about those YouTube videos on Nagas. I have to admit, I was pretty captivated by how both Sri and Praveen Mohan present these beings
It's
as
more than just snakes.
far more than just snakes. Yeah, it's fascinating.
What I think is truly intriguing is how they both suggest that the Nagas were actually a separate species, possibly even extraterrestrial, who acted as, get this, teachers and rulers to early humans.
Wow.
Like ancient astronauts, basically, sharing their knowledge with humanity.
Okay, now that's where I get a little skeptical, but
Yeah.
I can definitely see how that sparks the imagination.
Yeah.
If we entertain the idea for a moment, could there be a connection between these supposedly wise Nagas and the presence of serpent myths in so many other cultures?
It's a great question, and one that I think we can start to unpack as we look at something like the Serpent Mound in Ohio,
Right. That article details the Serpent Mound's unique features.
doesn't it?
And it even highlights its possible connection to astronomical events like the summer solstice.
Well, that alignment with the solstice suggests that it was used for exactly that, predicting seasons, guiding planting cycles,
Right.
understanding their place within the cosmos,
It's amazing to think that these ancient cultures, without telescopes or any of our modern technology,
Yeah.
could make those kinds of connections.
It puts into perspective the depth of their knowledge and the carefulness of their observations.
Yeah, they didn't just look at the sky.
Right.
They saw patterns and cycles reflected in everything around them. The stars,
The Scythes.
the seasons, even the life cycle of creatures like the serpent.
And they wove those observations into their myths and beliefs, creating this tapestry of meaning that connected them to something so much larger than themselves.
And what about that mention of the Serpent Mound being near a potential meteor impact site? That's something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. The article refers to it as a crypto-explosion crater, which essentially means a crater that was formed by this sudden, powerful event.
Potentially a meteor?
Potentially meteor impact, yeah.
But the fact that the Serpent Mound was built on a site with this dramatic geological history,
Exactly.
it raises questions about why they chose that spot.
Yeah. Did they see it as a place of power? Maybe connected to the serpent itself.
So we've got these powerful serpent figures connected to water, the sky, wisdom, and even possible cosmic events.
Where do we go from here?
That's a good question.
Well, I think we're starting to see a pattern, aren't we?
Yeah.
Serpents seem to hold this profound meaning across so many different cultures. They embody both creative and destructive forces, knowledge, power, and perhaps even a connection to something beyond our world.
Right.
Like we're uncovering pieces of a global serpent puzzle. And each piece reveals a bit more about humanity's enduring fascination with these creatures.
Are we saying that these myths are more than just stories?
That's the question we're trying to unravel, isn't it?
Yep.
And as we delve deeper into this puzzle,
Deeper.
you might be surprised by the connections and insights we uncover.
Well, let's do it.
What I find really fascinating is how the serpent consistently emerges as like a teacher or a source of knowledge in these myths.
Mm-hmm.
Take the Nagas, for instance. Those YouTube videos, they depict them as possessing this deep understanding of the universe,
Right.
like imparting their wisdom to early humans.
It's almost like they represent this raw, primal wisdom, this
Yeah.
instinctual knowledge that's been passed down through the ages.
Exactly.
And it's not just the Nagas, is it?
No, not at all.
That Wikipedia article on the Amaru, it also mentions how it was associated with wisdom in Inca mythology.
Absolutely. And they even say that images of the Amaru were often placed in the Yachai Wasikuna,
What's that?
which translates to houses of knowledge.
Wow.
So clearly, these serpent beings held a significant place in the Incas' intellectual and spiritual development.
It's amazing to think that a culture so far removed from the Nagas in India would share such similar beliefs about serpent wisdom.
I know, it really speaks to the universality of certain archetypes and symbols, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that connection to knowledge ties back to the Serpent Mound as well,
Okay.
while its exact purpose still remains this mystery.
Right.
The article does suggest that it may have been a tool for tracking astronomical events.
Which, again, would require pretty sophisticated understanding of the cosmos.
Oh, absolutely.
There's even mention of a possible connection to Halley's Comet.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
To think that these ancient cultures, without telescopes or any modern technology, could make those kinds of connections is just mind-blowing.
It makes you realize how deeply they observed and understood the world around them.
Yeah. It puts our own knowledge into perspective.
Totally.
Makes me wonder if we've lost touch with that deep connection to nature.
It's a valid point. We're so reliant on technology and data now that we've kind of lost sight of the wisdom you can find in just observing the natural world.
Right, right.
Maybe these serpent myths are reminding us to reconnect with those ancient ways of knowing.
That circles back to the question of whether these serpent myths are purely symbolic
Mm-hmm.
or if they point to something more tangible.
Something we might have just dismissed as legend.
Yeah,
That's the heart of it, isn't it?
I think so.
I think one of the most compelling aspects of this topic is that it really straddles the line between myth and reality.
It does.
We have these incredible stories and archetypes that have been passed down through generations,
Right.
yet we also have these tantalizing hints of possible real-world connections.
Like the idea of the Nagas being a separate species, maybe even extraterrestrial.
Oh yeah, Praveen Mohan even draws comparisons to modern beliefs about reptilian beings.
Which, I gotta say, sounds a little out there to me.
Sure. A healthy dose of skepticism is always warranted.
Of course.
But it's important to remember that our understanding of history and the universe is always evolving.
Right. What might have seemed like pure fantasy a few decades ago could be closer to reality than we initially thought.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like we're trying to put together this giant puzzle, but we only have a few of the pieces. We have these ancient myths and legends,
Right.
and we have our modern scientific discoveries. And somewhere in between those two, there might be a bigger picture waiting to be revealed.
So what do we do?
Well, I think the challenge is to keep an open mind,
Oh?
to examine the evidence carefully, and to question our assumptions about what's possible.
What mysteries might be hiding in plain sight?
Exactly. Just waiting for us to connect the dots.
Oh. I like that, connecting the dots.
Yeah.
It's like a detective story.
Totally.
But instead of clues, we're looking for patterns and connections in ancient myths and symbols.
I love that analogy.
And speaking of connections,
Yeah.
Praveen Mohan had this interesting theory about identifying the oldest members of a family in a photo album.
Okay, what is it? He said you look for the person who appears in all the pictures.
Oh, interesting.
And he applied that to the Nagas, saying that because they appear in all these ancient temples and sites, they could be the oldest gods, even older than the ones we traditionally consider to be the most ancient.
Wow, that's a really thought-provoking idea.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it challenges our whole understanding of the timeline of ancient cultures and beliefs.
Right.
And if serpent imagery really is the most ancient and widespread,
The question becomes, why?
yeah, why the serpent? What is it about this creature that has held such a powerful grip on the human imagination
I mean, for so long.
and across so many cultures?
Could it be that serpent imagery was simply like a starting point for a lot of cultures?
Interesting.
A way to represent the natural world and the forces that shaped their lives?
Okay.
Or is there something more to it, something we've yet to grasp?
Perhaps the serpent represents something primal, something that resonates with our deepest instincts and fears. I mean, it's a creature that embodies both beauty and terror,
Right.
healing and destruction.
That duality again?
Exactly. Maybe that's what makes it such a potent symbol.
One that continues to fascinate us, even today.
Yeah.
And it's funny how often serpent imagery appears in our own modern culture.
Like where?
We see it in medicine,
True.
mythology, art,
Right.
even in our everyday language.
Well, yeah, for sure. Think
Yeah.
about it. We talk about a serpent's tongue.
To describe someone who's deceptive.
Exactly. Or we use the image of a snake shedding its skin
Uh-huh.
to represent transformation and renewal.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And don't forget about the serpent's association with wisdom and knowledge.
Oh, right, from the Garden of Eden.
Yep, to the wise serpents in those ancient myths we were talking about.
It's almost like the serpent is this eternal symbol of our pursuit of understanding.
I like that. Our pursuit of understanding.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it represents that part of us that drives us to explore,
To question.
to question, and to push the boundaries of what we know.
It yearns for knowledge, even if that knowledge comes at a price.
Absolutely.
And this is where things get really interesting. Remember how that article about Emperor Tupac Amaru mentioned that Amaru symbolizes liberation and resistance in Andean culture?
I do, yeah.
Well, Praveen Mohan suggests that the word Amaru might actually have Sanskrit origins.
Wait, seriously? That's fascinating.
I know, right? He says Amar means immortal god in Sanskrit.
Wow.
It's almost too perfect to be a coincidence.
It really is.
It's like there's this invisible thread connecting these seemingly disparate cultures and beliefs.
Spanning continents and centuries.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And it just adds a whole new level of complexity to this whole discussion.
About the global prevalence of serpent myths.
Right.
If there's a linguistic connection between the Amaru in the Andes and ancient Sanskrit.
Then it just opens up all these new possibilities about cultural diffusion
Right.
and the interconnectedness of ancient civilization.
So it's like we're glimpsing the outlines of a much larger story.
One that links ancient civilizations and beliefs in ways that we never imagined.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing, really.
And that's what makes this deep dive so captivating.
It is, isn't it?
It's not just about learning new facts.
No.
It's about expanding our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that there's always more to learn, more connections to make, more mysteries to unravel.
The serpent, it seems, is this guide that leads us ever deeper into the labyrinth of knowledge.
That's beautiful.
And speaking of labyrinths, that Wikipedia article mentioned how the Amaru could actually transcend the boundaries
Oh, wow.
between the physical and spiritual realms,
Okay.
traveling between the world we know
Right.
and the subterranean world.
So it's like a bridge.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, the seen and the unseen.
That concept of the serpent as a bridge between worlds is so powerful.
It's not unique to Indian culture either.
Oh, of course not.
Think about the serpent in the Garden of Eden, tempting Eve with the knowledge that allows her to see the world in a new light.
Yeah, the serpent acts as this catalyst for awakening, for expanding consciousness beyond the limits of ordinary perception.
Makes me wonder if these ancient cultures saw the serpent as something that transcended physical reality. Maybe even representing the life force itself, this unseen energy that animates all things.
It's a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
And it resonates with those YouTube videos about the Nagas being more than just snakes,
Right.
like beings of pure energy.
Or consciousness.
Yeah,
Mm.
almost as if these ancient cultures were grappling with something beyond their full comprehension.
And expressing it through myth and symbol.
Exactly.
And maybe those myths and symbols are more than just stories.
What do you mean?
Maybe they're actually encoded with a deeper truth that we're only beginning to rediscover.
Interesting. It's like we're peering through a foggy window.
Trying to make sense of something both familiar and utterly alien.
I like that. Familiar and utterly alien. Perhaps the key to unlocking that deeper truth lies in understanding the language of myth itself. Myths aren't just stories.
Right.
They're ways of understanding the world.
Of making sense of the mysteries that surround us.
Exactly.
And the serpent seems to be one of the most potent symbols in that mythic language.
For sure. And there's another layer to this.
Yeah.
Those YouTube videos also mention how the Nagas were associated with the underworld.
Oh, right.
And that reminded me of something in the Wikipedia article about the Amaru. It was linked to the underworld as well.
Really?
Yeah. The earthquakes, it seems the serpent isn't just this symbol of wisdom or knowledge, but something much more complex, much more multi-layered.
So it's not just all good.
Not necessarily, no.
You're right. It embodies that duality again.
It does, doesn't it?
Connected to the life-giving forces of nature, water, fertility.
But also to its destructive aspects, like earthquakes and the underworld.
It's like it represents the cycle of life and death itself, the constant interplay between creation and destruction.
And that connection to the underworld might also be linked to the serpent's association with hidden knowledge.
How so?
Well, in many mythologies, the underworld is this place where secrets are kept, where the mysteries of life and death are revealed.
Okay.
It's a place of initiation, transformation, and facing your deepest fears.
So maybe the serpent represents our own journey into the unknown.
Maybe.
Our willingness to confront the darkness and shadows to gain wisdom and understanding.
I think that's a really beautiful way to put it.
It makes sense, right?
It does.
But it also sounds kind of dangerous.
Well, yeah, exactly. It can be both transformative and dangerous, like the Amaru myth suggests.
Right.
It can lead to incredible knowledge and power, but it can also expose you to forces that you may not be ready to handle.
It's like the serpent is this guide.
Yeah.
But not always a benevolent one.
It challenges us to face our fears, to confront the unknown, and ultimately to embrace that duality of existence.
And to embrace the fact that growth and transformation often involve confronting difficult truths and venturing into the unknown.
Absolutely. You know, this reminds me of something Praveen Mohan mentioned in his video about the villagers near those cooler caves in Tamil Nadu.
Oh, right. They have this oral tradition about these beings who came from the sky and taught humans about civilization.
Yes. And they describe these beings as short and initially kind of frightening.
Right. But eventually humans learned from them.
Exactly. And then at some point, these beings just vanished.
So strange.
It's like they were these mysterious teachers who appeared for a brief time, shared their knowledge, and then disappeared back into the ether, leaving behind these seeds of civilization.
That echoes the myths about the Nagas being teachers and guides for humanity.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's incredible to think that these ancient stories might actually hold clues to our past, even if they seem fantastical on the surface.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
It really is.
Ancient serpent myths, potential extraterrestrial contact, lost civilizations, the nature of consciousness itself.
Feels like we've stumbled into a rabbit hole.
A rabbit hole that leads to an entirely different dimension of reality.
But that's what I love about these deep dives, isn't it?
It is.
They allow us to explore these uncharted territories of knowledge.
To question our assumptions.
To embrace the mystery and wonder that still surrounds us.
Who knows what we might discover if we keep digging, if we keep asking questions.
And if we stay open to the possibilities.
I like that. Stay open to the possibilities.
It's key.
Speaking of possibilities,
yes.
Both Praveen Mohan and Shri M emphasize the importance of personal experience in their videos.
Oh, right.
They both talked about encountering the Nagas in different ways. Praveen through the stories and the evidence he found in those ancient sites.
Right.
And Shri M through like direct mystical experience.
I see.
And that really highlights a crucial aspect of this whole conversation.
What's that?
While it's super fascinating to explore these myths and legends from an intellectual perspective, there's also this deeper, more intuitive level of understanding that we can access through our own personal experiences.
I agree.
It's like these myths are trying to tell us something about ourselves, about our own potential for wisdom and transformation.
And maybe the key to unlocking that potential is looking within.
Looking within.
Yeah, exploring the hidden depths of our own consciousness.
It's not just about reading about these ancient myths, but about connecting with them on a personal level.
Right.
Seeing how they resonate with our own lives and our own experiences.
Exactly. Perhaps the serpent, in all its mystery and power, is ultimately a symbol of our own inner journey.
Our own quest for knowledge and self-discovery.
Precisely.
And that journey, it seems, is one that we each have to undertake for ourselves.
It's a solo mission.
Yeah. There's no one right answer.
Right.
No single path to follow.
It's about being open to the possibilities.
Right.
Trust your own intuition to guide you.
Like the serpent itself. It can lead us through all these twists and turns, moments of darkness and light, ultimately bringing us face to face with the mysteries of existence.
As we navigate that journey,
Mm-hmm.
we might just find that the serpent, in all its complexity and symbolism, becomes this powerful guide for us.
A reminder of our own capacity for transformation and our connection to the vast web of life that connects us all.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We talked about the Amaru in Andean cultures, the Nagas in Hindu tradition, the Serpent Mound here in the U.S.
Right, and how serpent imagery just seems to pop up in cultures all over the world.
And we've touched on some pretty mind-blowing ideas.
Yeah, we have.
Extraterrestrial contact, lost civilizations, the serpent as a symbol of our own inner journey.
It's amazing how all these seemingly disparate ideas have come together in this one deep dive.
And this is just the beginning, right?
Just the tip of the iceberg.
There's still so much more to explore.
Oh, absolutely.
So many more questions to ask. What we've done here is open a door to this vast and fascinating realm of knowledge.
Like uncovering the tip of the iceberg, and there's this whole world beneath the surface waiting to be explored.
And now it's up to you, dear listener, to step through that door and continue the exploration.
That's right.
Dive deeper into these sources.
Yeah.
Research other cultures' serpent myths.
And most importantly, be open to the mysteries and possibilities that are out there.
Because the serpent, it seems, is a guide that never stops leading us down the path of discovery.
Beautifully said.
As we've been talking about these serpent myths and their reach across the globe, one little detail from the Serpent Mound article keeps coming back to me.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It described the serpent's head as being, and I quote, so beautifully abstracted. The article mentioned how archaeologists have debated for decades about what it's supposed to represent.
Yeah, what is it? An egg?
An egg, a frog.
The sun.
The sun, an open mouth.
Okay.
A giant eye.
Wow.
Or even poison glands.
So many possibilities.
I know, it's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
It's almost as if the ambiguity is intentional.
You think so?
Like the creators of the Serpent Mound wanted to leave it open to interpretation.
Yeah, they didn't want to dictate a single meaning. They wanted to invite people to engage with the symbol on their own terms.
Exactly. It's powerful, isn't it?
It is.
This idea that meaning isn't always fixed or absolute. Sometimes the most profound symbols are the ones that allow for multiple interpretations.
The ones that encourage us to bring our own understanding to the table.
Yeah.
Instead of giving you a concrete answer, it gives you a question.
A question that invites you to search for your own meaning.
Exactly.
And that's such a valuable lesson for us as we try to navigate this world of information overload.
Right. Where everyone's always trying to find the right answer.
Yeah.
The one definitive interpretation.
Yeah. Sometimes the most enriching approach is to embrace ambiguity.
Keep an open mind.
To allow for the possibility that there might be more than one truth.
Like those optical illusions where you can see two images depending on how you look at it.
It's the same image, but the way we perceive it changes our whole understanding of what we're seeing.
I like that. Our perspective shapes our reality.
Exactly. And maybe that's what the serpent is ultimately trying to tell us.
To do what?
To be open to different perspectives.
To question our assumptions.
Yeah, to embrace the duality of existence.
Because maybe, just maybe, in that embrace.
And that willingness to hold the tension between these opposing forces, we find a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world.
The serpent reminds us that life is full of paradoxes and contradictions, and that true wisdom lies in embracing that complexity.
So, given how widespread these serpent myths are all over the globe, are we looking at separate cultural phenomena?
Or could there be like a deeper, more universal meaning to our fascination with these creatures?
What do you think?
Well, I think the answer is probably a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, each culture has developed its own unique serpent myths and beliefs.
Shaped by their environments and their history.
Exactly. But I also think there's something about the serpent itself that speaks to us on a deeper level.
Something primal.
Yeah, something primal that taps into our shared fears and desires.
Our connection to nature.
Our eternal quest for knowledge and understanding.
And I think that's what makes this topic so endlessly fascinating.
It really is.
It's this journey of exploration that leads us outward into the world.
And inward into ourselves.
The answers we seek might not be found just in external sources, but also within.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is, isn't it?
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into serpent myths, I encourage you to keep exploring the resources we talked about today.
Go back to that Wikipedia article.
Read more about the Amaru.
Learn about the Nagas.
Check out the Serpent Mound.
See what resonates with you, what sparks your curiosity.
And what challenges your assumptions.
Because the serpent,
In all its complexity and symbolism.
it's a powerful guide.
A reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is this ongoing journey.
Filled with wonder, mystery, and endless possibilities.
That's it for this deep dive, folks. Thanks for listening.